Hello, my name is Tessa Asquith-Lamb and I'm an artist. I work at the City Arts Centre and other venues, running workshops and also leading described tours for the visually impaired. In my second video today, I'm going to be showing you some sketchbook work based on the exhibition Jock McFadyen Goes to the Pictures. As you can see, I'm a big fan of sketchbooks. Just on this table in front of me, you've got quite a lot of my sketchbooks and they're all about a similar size, and this is the kind of size that I find is handy just to sort of carry around with you in your pocket. And sketchbooks like this I get through maybe about one a year, depending on how things are going. And I use all sorts of different materials in them, but my favourite thing to use is fine liner pens. So these little pens like this, which I've got a lovely kind of beautiful fine line, and you can get them in different colours. So here's a page where I've used very sort of purpley brown colour in this page, and then I've got some darker sort of tones, blacks in this one. So I'm using these a lot, and I'm using them on top of watercolour. You can see in this little page I've got sort of watercolour, and then I'm using pen over the top, and I'm using it to highlight areas. Maybe if I've painted a page, I'm using fine liner pen to work into that. So it's something I really find really works for me. But you could use pencil. I find it that pages done in pencil in Sketchbook kind of rub together if you've not fixed them, and you lose that crispness. Because I'm an etcher, I really, enjoy really kind of fine lines. I think that's why I'm drawn to fine liner pens, and they're also just quite handy to carry around. But there's something about the scale of a sketchbook as well that makes it really kind of appealing to me. You've not got as much pressure on you, and you've just got this little space to fill in a sketchbook as you have with a bigger artwork. And of course you can carry it around an exhibition with you, and you can carry it around in your daily life, and when you see something interesting you can note it down or you can sketch it later. And those things act like a diary, and each one of these sketchbooks, if I go through it, will feel like a diary. I'll remember how I was feeling at those times and what I'd seen. And the work in sketchbooks can crop up later in your own artwork. Like sometimes years later, something from a sketchbook will suddenly become important or will become really kind of valuable to you. So they're a really fantastic resource. I see them as kind of like banks of ideas. So I'm going to start to show you how to work on this kind of smaller scale and just show you some techniques and some of the things that I've drawn out of some of the parts of that exhibition that we've been looking at in the first video. So I'll just put these away, and then I'll get some materials out and I'll start to show you some techniques. So I've set out some pieces of paper that are about the size of the pages of my sketchbook, just so that you can see them a little bit better. So they're just sort of slightly above postcard size, and we're going to start by thinking about some of the elements from the exhibition that have really stayed in my memory. And one of the things that has really kind of remained with me is Self-Portrait with Jake, which shows the artist with his greyhound kind of looking at him. So I've been thinking about the dogs from my past, and this is a dog called Alice, who I had when I was little, and I thought, well, I'd quite like to sort of work on her and sketch that image of the dog kind of looking up at you, which is such a kind of common theme in art and represents kind of loyalty and faithfulness. So obviously you could just start sketching from this image very quickly using pens, or you can use pencil. So you could just start with a little pencil sketch. So I'm doing this upside down, but I've got a little sketch underneath here just to work on top of. But I'm using my fine liner pens because I really, really like them. And you see I'm working quite loosely. And if you're standing somewhere outside, or you're trying to work in a kind of difficult environment, you do have to work quite quickly sometimes, because you can't sit and work for ages. Sometimes you've got to work quickly, and I find that the speed of drawing with pen is something that really suits me. So I'm just going to go down Alice's. I find that I use this technique where you kind of don't take your pen off the paper too much. I don't always kind of do it all the time, but it gives you that fluidity, and it's quite nice when you're just sketching to sort of start like that. So, there's Alice looking up. So that's a really kind of quick little drawing of that scale, but you might like to do something a little bit different. You might like to start working on top of some collage, and this is something that I do quite a lot. I'll sometimes pre-prepare a page rather than carry around little bits of paper with me. I've got big boxes full of paper that I keep in different colours because it's just so useful. So I've already started. You can see that I've mirrored the shape of Alice's face here with some little bits of collage, and to draw on top of there, my lines might get a little bit lost. So what I'm going to do, this is my number one tip really, is to get some just white tissue and stick that over the top of your collage. And this works in the same way as putting a kind of wash of colour over a bit of a painting that's a bit too strong. What it does, it's going to just tone everything down. And it means that when you start drawing on top of that, you've still got some of the tone from the collage, but you've just quieted it down, have quietened it down slightly and made it a little bit more sort of soft to draw on top of, and a little bit smoother as well. Sometimes you can just sort of smooth the surface a little bit. You see how it's just quieted down a little bit. I've also got these kind of pens like this. I don't know if you've seen these. They've got a pointy end here, and then they've got a marker here, and you get them in different tones, and they're really handy just to sort of start roughing in areas. So let's start with Alice's nose, and you can see that that's just bringing me instantly some tone on there, and I've got her ear coming down here, and it's very dark around her eye, and I'm really just working really quickly, getting some tone in there. And then I go back in with my pen, which is the same pen I was using for this one. And there's her eye, sort of there. And you see, I'm not worrying about where those bits of collage are. I'm drawing over the top of them, but they're just there as just to sort of give me a nice kind of background to start drawing on top of, and give me something to sort of work through. Let's get her collar in. Let's see, and go back in with a bit of the tone. And keep looking at my photograph and see where it's dark on the paper. Down there, around her eye, and round her nose, like that. So here we've got two versions of Alice. Get them into the light. So we've got our little collagey version and our drawn version. So for the last part of this video, I'm just going to show you how to combine some more elements from some of those pictures from the exhibition that have really sort of stayed in my mind. Now, in the corner of the David Scougal image, there's a really beautiful sort of swag of curtain that surrounds the picture of the Lord Provost, and that's quite a nice thing to sort of draw. It's got a really good tassel hanging off it. And so what I've done, I've cut that out of some red paper, ready orange paper, and I've just sort of sketched on top of that paper. So I've started out with my piece like this, and then I've started drawing on top of it. And I'm just going to use some of these marker pens just to add a little bit more tone, just to make it a little bit darker in some of these areas, and just to sort of give it some sort of swagger and kind of darker tones around there. And as a kind of framing device, a curtain like this adds a real kind of sense of drama to something, and it's nice to to put something else in there, I think, later on. that's, you know, nothing like the kind of the status of the person in the original picture. You've got this little piece of the very formal portrait, and then add something different to it. The other thing that I really sort of sticks in my mind from that picture is the hand that's resting on the table in that image is really kind of beautiful. So what I've done, I've cut that hand, the hand that's resting on the corner of the table, just out of some paper here, and I've got the sort of bits of the cuff to stick together. And I like doing little bits of collage, and these elements you could then stick into your sketchbook and draw on top of. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just add these little bits. So we've got this kind of hand that's resting. You can imagine it sort of resting on the edge of something like that. It's a nice shape. So I could add that into my sketchbook pages. So that's the hand from the David Scougal, and also the swag from the David Scougal. So I'm not thinking about the whole image, I'm just thinking about bits of those that I can then, you know, use to make something different. The other thing is that obviously the moon is such a striking image in that Carlton Hill picture, and I quite like the idea of the window from the David Scougal has kind of got a daytime scene in it, and if I could replace that with a little sort of moonlit scene. So what I've done, I've cut a little piece of paper here, it's got a little bit of gold kind of tinge to it, and I've cut a little silver moon, and I'm going to just add that to here. And then another tip is white fine liner pens. I love these, so you could very quickly make a starry sky around your moon. There we go. So I've got my moon, I've got my hand that's resting on the edge of the table, and I've got my swag of curtain. And then of course from before I've got my dog image, and so what I'm going to do is kind of combine all these together as I would in a sketchbook, and the way things from sketchbooks kind of all join together. So if we imagine that this is a double page from a sketchbook like this, and then I can play around with these pieces. So I've got my curtain at the side, and maybe have my moon behind it like this. Let's get those on, and then I can draw on top. So I really like the shape that this curtain makes. It's quite a nice sort of shape in itself, quite an abstract shape formed by those folds of cloth. And I've got my window with the moon to go behind. I'm going to slot that in there. And then I've got this hand which is going to come in maybe from the side. So obviously in the image it's resting like this on the tabletop. There's nothing to stop me from twisting it, just enjoying the shape of that. And here I've got my Alice, my dog. Add her in. Let's have her down the bottom, down here. And then just coming in from the side, I've got my very long, elegantly fingered hand. So that's going to come in like this. You can see all those elements now together in my sketchbook page. I'm just going to trim off these edges, and then of course I can draw into that again. And draw on top of those things, those elements that I've just sort of added in. So add some extra swags to the curtains that I've added in. And maybe, I really like this kind of loops and tassels that are in the top of here, so I'll maybe add some more of those in. Like this. Some bits of tassels down here. Maybe add an edge to my window like this. and give myself a bit of a horizon line around Alice. So I'll work on this some more and then come back to you with the finished product. This is it so far. So here's my finished sketchbook page, which incorporates elements from the exhibition and from my own past. So I've got my page here as it would appear in my sketchbook. So I've got the curtain and the hand from the David Scoogle. I've got the moon in the window behind, and I've got my own dog Alice from my past at the bottom. So this is incorporating elements from different things that I've seen in the exhibition and also things from my memories, and this is how I've put them together in my sketchbook. So I hope this has encouraged you to have a go at some smaller sketchbook sized works and to experiment with using a bit of collage and some fine liner pens and just having a good play around in your sketchbooks.